if I can pay a compliment to Steve Cable, which is well-deserved, he has dug deeper into some of the data from other surveys than anybody I know.
Awesome.
And one of the reasons we also wanted to do this survey is because, quite frankly, sometimes people will take this top-level look at a survey that a lot of people say they believe in God, so the church is doing fine. No, incorrect. Or there are a lot of people that say they're sharing their faith. Well, then we ask them what that means, and turns out that means to say, well, I go to church, which is not exactly the gospel, okay? And so we found that, first of all, some of these surveys are not done well, but second of all, as I'm alluding to, sometimes individuals misinterpret those surveys. And we've seen all sorts of people saying, you know, the church is doing fine, the young people, they've left the church for a while, but they're going to come back like the swallows to Capistrano. No, they're not. We have now looking at them over a 10-year period, and in a minute, maybe we can have Steve talk about this, because we've seen some of the effects over 10 years, because this argument that they're all going to come back and everything's going to be fine isn't really borne out by the research we've actually been able to do.
Yeah, if we look at the unaffiliated, the number of unaffiliated 18 to 29 10 years ago was about 30% of the population. Today, in 2020, the number of 30 to 39, which is the same group, right, 10 years later, is now about 35% of the population. In other words, instead of the unaffiliated saying, oh yes, now we're having children, it's time to go back to church and just take on our Christian mantle, we see that actually more of that age group are becoming unaffiliated. And then when we look at what the unaffiliated believe and how often they attend church and those type of things, they're down at the lowest level. Under 5% on most of those questions, where the evangelicals or the born-agains might be at 30 to 50% of the group, they'll be under 10. So these unaffiliated are not people who just don't want to affiliate with a Christian. You know, I just don't want anybody to know that I go to a particular church. They are really unbelievers.
Because you could ask the question. There was a survey that came out not too long ago. I don't remember what the polling company was, but I'm sure that you probably do. But it was about that less than 50% of people in America today are actually members of a church. That's as I recall, that's the data there. And I was curious now, does that indicate a de-emphasis of church membership? People, for instance, attending churches, maybe a non-denominational church that doesn't place an emphasis on church membership. Are these just people that aren't going anymore?
Well, I'm not sure on the membership question. I've seen the data from Gallup that talks about that, but I can tell you that many people are no longer going to church, because we ask them, how often do you attend church? And that can range from multiple times a week to not at all. And even amongst the born-again Protestants, the number who attend church weekly and pray daily and read the Bible at least once a week is very low. It's down around less than 5% of young adults that would say that they do that.
So as you look at some of these other trends, and we're looking at people that claim to be born-again Christians, but they're not, and a phrase that I've heard recently, they're not necessarily doing, and of course we recognize that we're saved by faith, and our works are outgrowths of our faith. They flow from our faith. So, but there are these sacraments. There are these practices that we are to take part in. We grow through our interaction with Christ, with His Word, through prayer. So it sounds like that you got people that are, A, claiming to be born-again Christians, but B, they're not going to church, and C, they're not doing the stuff.
Right, that's very true. And beyond that, for example, over 2/3 of born-again Protestants under the age of 40 believe that Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha are equally valid ways to God. They just happen to pick Jesus because it seemed to be a convenient way to do it here. That blows my mind.